Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another Tuesday Cruiser Chat with Otram. Sorry I missed chat last week. I totally spaced out and forgot that it was my sister-in-law's birthday and that we were going to birthday dinner for her. So yeah, no chat last week. And as you can see today, I'm still grubby because I was late leaving the shop to come here, so I didn't have a chance to get cleaned up first. But yeah, trying to think of what's new and happening at the shop. We got the cylinder head back from the machine shop to start putting the turbo truck together. So I'll start working on the turbo video tomorrow, which will be nice. And Edmonton Homestead, how's it going? Yeah, so we're getting the head back, so that can start moving forwards. Howdy Wes. Picked up a very, very, very used Bridgeport mill today. So the shop will have a mill before too long, which will be nice. And hey Timothy, how's it going? And Victor. Everybody's tuning in today. And Steven. So yeah, excited to finally have a big mill at the shop. But yeah, that's about all that's happening. Nothing exciting at the shop right now, other than turbo build. So yeah, whatever questions y'all have, I will do my best to answer them, because I don't have a ton to talk about tonight. And I don't know if it's showing up on your end, but the bookcase behind me looks like glitter everywhere. It's crazy. I don't know why the camera's picking it up like that tonight. But yeah, so whatever you guys want to chat about, ask away. I'm trying to think if there is any upcoming exciting. I don't think there is. And thanks for the congrats on the new mill. If you could see the shape of it, I don't know if that you'd be congratulating me. It looks like it came off the bottom of a lake. And it's really sad because I had to pull the table off to get it in the door. And everything the table was covering looks like factory pristine machining. Everything the table wasn't covering is crusty. And awesome, glad the Moab trip was good. I've yet to make it out there. My dad's been out a couple of times. But I haven't been out to Moab except for hiking. Awesome. Glad the videos are being helpful for everybody. Yeah, Patreon support is always awesome. The food from Hawaii was good. I haven't broken into the coffee yet, but the macadamia nuts and the jam were quite tasty. An odd question, but I don't like blueberries in muffins or by themselves, but I put them in my smoothie every morning. So yeah, I eat a ton of blueberries, but I always eat them in a smoothie with something else. And I have not welded a gas tank on an 80, and I've never actually seen one crack. I don't think I've seen 80s have any gas tank problems other than the filler necks rotting out. I haven't seen an actual tank problem with them. I'd be super scared of welding on a gas tank. I know there's people that do it, but I would not want to be one of them. And 4x4 Labs rear bumper kit or complete? Or am I building anything? If I had to build bumpers, I would starve to death because they take me so long. For my truck, I'm probably going to get the 4x4 Labs kit, and weld it out myself, because that won't take too terribly long. But yeah, if you're not handy with the welder and a grinder, full kit would probably be the way to go. Or complete, like, built would be the way to go. And updates on the exhaust. The prototyping's done. The test bends are back from the mandrel bending shop. I'm just going back and forth with them on material because what they normally bend with isn't what I want it made out of. So I'm just trying to get them to do a different series of stainless. So that's the sticking point right now. But otherwise, ready to rock. And how can you improve 91, 92, 80 series engine driving performance? Drop it off a cliff. The 3FE just isn't enough gusto to move an 80 series. The biggest thing you can do is put a 5-speed behind it instead of an automatic. But yeah, the 3FE just doesn't have the gusto to move an 80, and there's not much you can do to up the power on it. When doing an HC delete, yes, we've had the dash lights come on. If you look under the dash, like up near the steering column, more towards the center of the vehicle, you'll see a little box labeled like AHC computer. Just unplug the wires from that, and lights go out and all good. Just installed a CDL switch on LX450. When I hit the switch, not seeing it light up on the dash. That's a good question. I haven't diagnosed CDL switch not working. If you shift it into low range, like with the shifter, does the CDL lock light up? When you put it in low range, that would be my first question, because if it doesn't light doing it manually, it's probably a problem with the shift motor. Otherwise, I'm not sure without starting to trace through wiring on it. And let's see, red or blue Loctite on the slipper bolt. I usually use blue on those, just because it's a smaller sized bolt. Like, I'll use red on suspension and stuff like that, and I usually use blue on smaller fasteners. Or blue on stuff I want to be able to get apart again. You could up the gears to 488s, but I don't know that that's going to overcome just the anemic nature of that engine. And yeah, if the dash lights aren't lighting when you put it in low range either, I would assume it's a problem with the shift motor or with one of the switches that tells the dash lights to work. And you're just going to have to work through the wiring diagram until you figure out which part's not happy. And yes, I'm pretty sure you can run the part-time kit with the low range and high range gears in an 80 series case. I'm pretty sure the instructions on Marlin Crawler's website are doing the low range gears and the spool for the part-time kit at the same time. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do them both. And as far as the ASIN kits being the same quality as the dealer, I don't know for sure. I would assume that they're the same quality as they're making for the dealer. Like, I can't imagine that they would do a second lower quality batch. Like, the really old stuff for, like, the mini trucks and that, you can see where they ground the Toyota logo off of them. So, like, they were making the pumps with the Toyota logo cast in, and they would grind the Toyota logo off and stamp ASIN over it. for the stuff that didn't go to Toyota. So I would assume they're the same level, but I don't know for sure. It's hard to say what a tranny shop would charge to pull the transfer case and fix the input-output shaft leaks. It's not a fun job since they're snap ringed from the inside. I want to say book rate on it is like 7 or 8 hours. So, you know, it just depends on what the labor rate in your area is. Like, it varies vastly, even in Virginia, from $40 an hour to $180 an hour. So yeah, it just, it's hard to say, but probably $1,000 or so. Sleeve bumpers and sliders seem to be really top notch. We don't see a ton of them, but what we have seen has been really great. And the 94 to 97 80 series has the best performing engine, you know, at least as far as what was available in the US. They got a little bit more pep, and they were OBD2, so they're easier to diagnose. Yeah, any of them are an improvement over the 91, 92, but I'd go 95, 97. We used the belt in the Aisin kit. It's a Mitsubishi belt, which is, you know, a really high quality belt. I don't see any problem with them. Yeah, and I had no idea that it was pronounced Aishin. I've always called it Aisin. Yes, we do ship the exhaust. I reworked the 80 series tailpipe in this go around to fit in the smaller box that we used for the 62 series exhaust. So it should cut down the shipping a bit. It was like $200, $250 to ship it. It should be down in like the $120, $150 range, you know, in the US now. I think that would be an awesome place to work. Like, of aftermarket parts, they seem to be the best. And awesome. Glad somebody's got No Tramp sweatshirt. I don't even have one. For idler pulleys and other things, NSK or Koyo. I don't know Hayden. But Dayco and Gates are belt companies. They don't make bearings. They're repackaging someone else's bearings. So, you know, I like the Aishin kit. We'll pronounce that right now. Has, you know, Japanese NSK. I think it's NSK and Koyo. It might be Nachi as well, and I'm probably butchering those names also. But yeah, the Japanese bearings, I wouldn't use anything Dayco or Gates on a Land Cruiser. Like, I'm sure both of them have some higher end parts, but the stuff that you find, you know, in your local parts store is just lowest bidder, bottom of the barrel parts. Do I have any of the actual Toyota specialty tools? I have a few. I've got an old Toyota MasterTech, like the old school scanner from the 90s. I've got TechStream. I've got the actual pin gauge set and carb adjusting set for the old carburetors. And there's something else, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'd love a set of the Toyota pinion depth setting tools, but I never find the right ones on eBay. Like, I'll look every now and then, and it's always like some random axle I've never seen before. But a set of the Toyota pinion depth tools would be awesome, but I've yet to find one. And I've got, that's the other one I've got. It's the power steering lock nut driver. One of the local club members had the actual Toyota one and broke the pins. So when I was repinning it, I copied his off and made one of my own. I'm assuming, I don't know those part numbers, pressure control solenoid stuck off, or I don't know those error code numbers off the top of my head, but generally solenoids are just one of those things you replace. Yeah. I've never tried cleaning them. I've always just replaced them. And I like Bando belts. I use those, like, most of the time I just get my belt straight from Toyota. Because they're cheaper than any of the parts stores around here. Like, I can get them straight from Toyota cheaper than I can get them from a parts house. Sometimes Whirlpack has the Bando about the same price, but it's faster for me to get them from Toyota. But they're good belts, and I use them. That's my second preference over Toyota. Any insight on Timken wheel bearings? Not much. Timken seems to have a really big range of quality. Like, they make really, really high quality bearings, and they make really, really crappy bearings. So I try to stick with Koyo, Nachi, NTN, NSK, like the Japanese-made bearings whenever I possibly can. I put a set of Timkens in a 67 Cruiser today, because that was all that was still available, besides like knockoff offshore bearings. But I prefer the Japanese brands to Timken, although in a lot of places Timkens are good. My tactic for separating the Burfields, I put a chunk of heavy wall tubing in my vise, and you just slam the Burfield down until the inner axle pops out. Have a block of wood on the floor so that the splines don't hit the concrete, and wear steel-toed shoes for when they hit your feet. But yeah, a lot of times they're really tough to get apart, and it really sucks. But yeah, just repeated whaling on a heavy wall pipe in a vise. Long side usually comes out easier than the short side because the long side axle is so much heavier. And thanks, David, for hitting the money button at the bottom. That's always awesome. And when should I consider re-gearing my 80? When you have lots and lots of money. No. It seems like anything over like a 35-inch tire is prime candidate for thinking about re-gearing. Up until a 35, it seems to handle it fine. Whenever you want more low-end torque, you can look at re-gearing. I really like the option of doing it in the transfer case as opposed to the axles, using lower low-range gears and underdrive high-range gears. Just seems like a lot easier. It's a lot easier to do it that way, and probably stronger because you're keeping the stronger 410 gears in the axles. And And yeah, I dig bandos. Yeah, if you overgrease the slip joints, pulling the Zerk and driving it a bit will squirt the it'll usually squirt the excess out, and make everything happy again. And yes, I use a press when doing the control arm bushings. Trying to think. Yeah, I think it's in one of the 80 series suspension videos. But yeah, I use the press, and I use Joey from Wits End's caster bushing tool. It makes it so much easier. And Swisher, which are you referring to me having a video on? I lost the train there. And you guys are fine. It's not time yet. I know the time change is messing you up, but it's not time yet. I do not have an ETA on the crank tool yet. I'm still waiting for them from the Waterjet guys. And I'm not quite sure what the holdup is. Although I did talk to a local machine shop this morning that I might have plasma cut them. So we'll see how that goes. That might speed up the restocking process. And to Swisher, yes, there is a video on re-gearing the transfer case in the 80 series playlist. And to Jamie, any advice on repairing headlight tabs? There's a company called Lord, like Lord, Fusor, Fusor. They make all kinds of like body shop high-end adhesives. And I can't remember the part number, but they have an adhesive that will glue anything back together, and it holds great for headlights. The problem is, by the time you buy the tube of adhesive and the gun to apply it, you're probably going to be close to the price of a headlight. So you might go looking for a body shop and see if anybody's got, a plastic adhesive gun that could glue it back together for you. What diff oil to use, front and rear? Check your owner's manual. Like the older stuff is 80-90. Some of the newer stuff wants 75-90 for the front and transfer case. Yeah, and for the most part, we just use regular conventional gear oil. Just because it takes so much, it's super expensive using synthetic. But for the most part, we use 80-90. Some stuff takes 75-90. And the Toyota Fipig is magic. That's all we use at the shop. We use the black, for valve covers, oil pumps, all that jazz, and we use the orange on differentials, transmissions, stuff like that. Awesome. Glad the timing belt videos were helpful. Man, 82 mini truck would be awesome to have. I've still got what's left of my 87 4Runner, and I've had a ton of early 80s Toyota trucks and cars, and I loved all of them. I still wish I had my 81 Celica. I have not done a video on transmission stuff like checking the levels and filling. It's been suggested a bunch of times. I just always forget to do it. I never think of it. when we're, going over a truck and checking all the fluids. I need to get around to doing that. And yes, the NOx sensors on the 1FZ, on the short side of the rectangle, if you squeeze it, there's a little tab, and it'll wiggle loose. They can be really hard to get off. And they can be really hard to get off without breaking the NOx sensors. But if you squeeze them and just kind of keep wiggling them, they'll come off. I don't know that you need to go to a thicker oil just because it's high mileage. 80/90 is pretty thick. If you're having noise or wear issues, a thicker oil is likely not going to help you. So I just stick with the factory recommendations on them. The kickdown cable kind of seems to dictate how hard or how smooth the trans shifts. It seems to affect how long it holds a shift. Like if you tighten it up, it makes it snappier and it shifts faster. Like it'll downshift quicker. But yeah, there's a lot of black magic going on in automatic transmissions that I don't fully understand. And yeah, I like the magic books. I think it's because I still have green screen set as one of the properties in the software that's running the chat, because I don't know how to disable it, and I'm guessing that some of the books are almost the color of the green screen. The heater lines aren't terrible from the dealer. I think they're like $170, $180, somewhere in there. They're not terrible. I mean, you could probably hand bend them out of like, copper or stainless. But we've always just used the dealer ones. I've heard of the NOx sensors failing. I haven't. The only way I've seen them fail is somebody broke the sensors off. I haven't seen them fail in actual operation. And they're pretty expensive. They're like $200 a whack. So if they're not broken, I wouldn't worry about replacing them, because they're not terrible to get to, even when the engine's in. And diff drop on a lifted 100 series, it is necessary when you get taller. For like the lower, like 1.5-inch lift, you're probably safe without it. The rule of thumb we generally use is, if we had to go to new control arms, upper control arms, to get the alignment back into spec, then it's tall enough that it needs a diff drop. So usually 2.5 or so, 2.5 or so inches or more, we do a diff drop on them. And there is a recommended procedure for adjusting the kickdown cable. I have to look it up every time. It involves measuring where the little ferrule that's on the cable sits. The down and dirty way of doing it is you adjust it so there's no slack in the cable. Like, you don't want it to be pulling the throttle open, but you want like minimal slack in it. Whew. Yeah, factory straight axle with all the build-up goodies. That is a sweet truck. Yeah, my 4Runner's got dual. It's factory 22RE, but solid axle swapped because it was an 87. But it's got dual cases, 470s in the back case, 529s, and 80 series axles. ARB in the front, locked rear. So pretty similar. And I love that truck. And yeah, on the turbo truck, I used the Transgo recalibration kit and Joey's trans gaskets. Yeah, I actually did the trans valve body a couple of weeks ago, and I contemplated doing a video on it while I was doing it, but I figured my first time going into a valve body and doing all the springs and balls and everything, I did not want to be stressing over doing a video while I was doing it. Best place to purchase a 100 series repair manual without getting really jacked on price. You can find them on eBay a lot, or you can also find them as PDFs. I've actually seen them in used bookstores as well, and the used bookstores generally don't know what they have, and they'll be like $4 or $5. I've picked a couple of them up that way, but most of mine have come from eBay. But even on eBay, they can be expensive. Every now and then you can find somebody selling them used on Amazon as well. And yeah, on mine it was a Marlin dual case kit. His adapters are the originals and seem to be the best. I don't like running trail gear parts, for the reason that they just took Marlin's work and copied it and, copied everybody else's. And Marlin's just an all-around good dude. Silver, what truck is it that you've got the valve cover gasket leak? And what brand gasket did you use? We only use the Toyota gaskets for stuff like that. The aftermarket ones just seem to suck and fail early. Yeah, I've got friends with 5Ms and 7Ms in early Toyota trucks, and both are super awesome. And the trans stuff wasn't bad. Granted, I had the trans out of the truck and upside down, so I wasn't having trans fluid dripping on me and doing it upside down. But it wasn't bad. I did a 700 R4 with a Transgo kit years ago, and that one sucked. But the 80 series wasn't bad at all. And how far out are we on new customers? Probably a month and a half right now. We've been doing a pretty good job of rolling through the backlog the last couple of weeks. So not as bad as it has been. And the silver 97 Toyota, I would check all the bolts. Make sure everything's snug. Especially with a Toyota gasket. The only other thing I can think of is I've seen one guy's crack about halfway back, on the exhaust side. Just a small crack in the head that would weep oil. And I have no idea why it cracked, and he just smeared it with some RTV and sealed it up. And CV boot has huge tear, reboot or wait until they click. If you're doing the work yourself, it's rebootable. When people are paying us to do it, I generally tell them wait till they click and replace it with an OEM axle. Because by the time somebody pays me to disassemble the axle, clean it, repack it, reboot it, you're getting pretty close in labor costs to what an axle would cost. But if you're doing the work yourself, reboot it. If you're paying somebody to do it, new axle. I guess would be the easiest way to put that. And head bolts, they can go back anywhere. They don't care what space they came out of. The valve caps are all you really have. The valve caps and the valve shims are all you really have to keep track of. The bolts can go back anywhere. Um, I've never had a problem reusing them. Uh, a lot of people replace them just for peace of mind, but Toyota doesn't list them as a one-time use bolt, at least not anywhere I've seen. So, if the threads look good and they're not necked down anywhere, we reuse them. Oh yeah, and if you've got the trans out, flip it over on an engine stand, and it's not hard to do at all. Just take your time. Like, I drew all over Transgo's instructions, marking each step as I did it, and marking each ball and spring and check valve, like, as I placed them, to make sure I didn't miss anything. But it wasn't bad at all. It's a little confusing because the instructions cover like 4 different versions of the trans, and there's different parts for different versions, and some get used and some don't, depending on your version, and they're not super descriptive as to what parts go where, so it's a little bit of a guessing game, but not terrible. Oh yeah, I forgot Joey just posted that. I knew I'd seen it somewhere recently. But yeah, he put it on Instagram. I think he also put it on Facebook. It's funny, Facebook popped up and was like, "You're now a top fan for Wits End. Claim your badge," which I have no idea what that means. I think it means I like too many of Joey's posts. I don't know that Joey... I don't know if he put up a video. I think it was just a written description. I know he did it a couple of Facebook posts, and I think it was last week, but I'm not I'm not sure. I can never remember which one is which on the valve stem seals. It's super obvious when you pull it apart. One has the little flange on it and one doesn't. I think the flanged ones are exhaust, but I could be completely mistaken. But when you go to pull the stem seals, it's obvious which ones go where. Awesome. Glad the H55F transfer case video helped out. If the area between the head or the valve cover and the distributor is really gunky, it could be a valve cover gasket coming down, but more likely it's the actual distributor O-ring itself weeping. Especially if it's never been changed before on a 94, I'm sure it's rock hard and leaking. And it's a cheap O-ring. It's like $2. It's not that hard to change. Yeah, Joey's power steering cooler kit's awesome. I put Niaz's on a couple of weeks ago, and it was funny. Ale Stock Adventures was there as well. when I was putting Niez's on. So they were chatting about it because they both have supercharged 80s. But yeah, I really like how clean that kit that he put out is. Like, it's everything that you need. It's awesome. What's involved with the Wits End factory e-locker rebuild kit? I am not sure. I've never actually rebuilt a locker actuator. I've got 2 of the Wits End kits sitting on my desk at the shop because the lockers in my 80 weren't working. So I figured I was going to have to rebuild the actuators. And then I found out somebody swiped the front locker out of mine. So there is no front locker, and that's why it didn't work. But I need to rebuild the rear actuator at some point. I just hadn't had a chance to do it. And the plan is to do a video on doing it. I took it apart once to get the rear axle locked so that I could pull the shafts out when I was doing wheel bearings. But I didn't have the kit at the time to actually put it all back together right. So it's just kind of slapped back together right now until I go in there and do the actual rebuild. You may have missed me at Fall Crawl because I bailed early. I got there Thursday night. And Thursday night was rough. And then Crash and I wheeled Friday, and then I left early Friday evening to make it home for a 10K the next day. And that doesn't seem bad at all for a throttle assembly with sensor. And cool, thanks for tuning in, Jamie. Have a good one. You guys need to go out. The dogs are killing me with the time change. They keep thinking it's dinner time way too early. More pep is always good. Really, no barking. Man, I'd love to see a 100 series with a 1FC and a stick shift from the factory. We got nothing cool like that here. Yeah, I wish you could get anything manual still from Toyota in the truck lineup. We've got a customer with a couple of stick shift Tundras, which is like, he's the only person I know that has a stick shift Tundra. It's just not something you really see anymore. And I'm gonna have to fix the magical books before next chat. That's just bugging me. On the 80 series head or the 1FZ head bolts, the threads get lubricated in motor oil and the washer between the head bolt and the washer, but not the washer and the head, because you want the bolt spinning on the hardened washer, not the hardened washer spinning against the aluminum head. No anti-seize, no thread locker, because it's a torque to yield bolt, so it's a base torque setting and then an angular torque setting, and they're calculating that based on the 530 and the washer lube. Should a 2.5-inch lift include beefier upper and lower control arms if you intend to wheel it a little? Which truck are you talking about? I'm assuming 100 series, but I'm getting lost with everybody. On 100 series 2.5 lift, we usually do upper control arms. I haven't seen any options for beefier lower control arms, but I also haven't really looked. Yeah, everybody except us seems to have gotten manual Land Cruisers. I am kind of a wizard. You can do dual cases in an 80. It's like Northwest Fab or somebody like that. It's a black box. It's called the black box. I've never done one, but it basically adds another planetary gear set in between the trans and T case. I looked into doing it once for a guy, and it's wicked expensive. But I have not done one in person. And yeah, on a 100 series 2.5-inch lift, you're probably borderline of gonna need adjustable upper control arms or aftermarket upper control arms to get your alignment back in spec. We've done a couple of Trail Tailor's new upper control arms, and they have been super nice. We were using SPCs in the past, but I really like Trail Tailor's new upper control arms for the 100 series. I generally don't thread locker the brake caliper bolts. We just torque them to factory torque, and that seems to hold them down well. So yeah, we don't Loctite the caliper bolts. If you wanted a little bit of extra security, you could put blue on there. But I don't know that you need it. And Prado 90 series in Australia have to do the front shafts, but when I look at the parts list, it looks like the oil seals on the front are different on each side. I have no idea on a 90. Here in the States, the 4Runner is a different seal on each side of the differential. There's like a really big one. I think it's the bigger seal is on the passenger side, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it is two different seals, at least on the ones here. Leaks in the cats on an 80 series. For the 95, 97s, we use the MagnaFlows. They work well, and they're, a lot cheaper than Toyota. The 93, 94s, I don't have a good recommendation on because I'm not sure anybody's doing an aftermarket one. One FZ or 2UZ, which is more reliable? It'd be a toss-up. They're both excellent engines that seem to go forever. I don't know that one's more reliable than the other. And I don't remember how much the Trail Tailor uppers are. It's been a while since I ordered a set. And installed, it depends on what else we're doing. Like, if we're doing a lift at the same time, it'd be a little bit cheaper because you're already in there than it would be to straight install them on their own. But yeah, I'd have to look it up. If you shoot me an email to the shop, I can get you an estimate. But I don't know pricing off the top of my head. And yeah, I could go for a 97 with a high pinion cruiser front and full float rear. Except I'd probably put the 5.7 in it just because that'd be awesome. Our exhaust is designed around the 95-97 downpipe. It deletes the second cat on 95-97 to make room for it to go up over the rail. And then it basically acts like a 93-94 where it goes up over the rail and goes back. Theoretically, a 94 with the later MagnaFlow downpipe would bolt up. I've heard some of the mounts are different, and I haven't done the bolt up. I haven't done one on a 93-94 in the shop to be sure. We sent one to a guy that did it, and he had some issues with exhaust clearance, and I don't know if it was just because the way his mounts were, or the way he mounted the exhaust, or if there actually is exhaust clearance issues. So I'm hesitant to say that it will bolt up since I haven't physically done one in the shop to know 100% that it will bolt up. But looking at parts diagrams, it should work. But I don't know for sure. The latest on my Land Cruiser is that it's still a pile. We moved it to the other side of the parking lot, and that's about as much as I've done with it. I used it to prototype the latest revision of the 80 series exhaust, but I don't actually have that exhaust on the truck yet because I haven't done the fixtures for the new tubing. So yeah, no real update. And install cost on the 4x4 Labs rear bumper would depend on if it was the full built one or if I was welding it all up. Like if I was building it up from a kit. So yeah, now so yeah, a lot of variables there. So I'd have to look into it. Yeah, G-Smitter would be awesome. I haven't been in 12 years, maybe more than that. Coolant the oil pan due to blown head gasket. Any recommendation for good engine flush? We generally, whenever we do a head gasket, we drain the oil and change the filter, fill it back up with fresh oil, run it, to get everything warm, and then drain and change the oil again, and that seems to do it. Because the flushes for engines are more about breaking up like varnish and tar and sludge than going after coolant. So we just changed the oil a couple of times. Um, and yeah, I think there is a build quality when comparing a Land Cruiser to a Sequoia or a Tundra. Um, the Land Cruisers seem to have burlier parts. Well, the Land Cruiser and the Tundra seem to be pretty comparable, but the Sequoia seems to be like not quite as burly. I don't have any really empirical data for that. It's just like a gut feeling from looking at them. And yes, I do weld. I'd have to look it up and see exactly what's involved in putting one of the kits together. Um, because it's likely a lot of labor. And I have not looked at Iron Tight for coolant flushing. We don't do much in the way of flushes at the shop, just drain and fills. Unless there's an issue like we're trying to solve, like contamination or like coolant mixing, stuff like that. Guys, can you go in the other room to play? The dogs are going crazy behind me. They are not liking this time change. Hola, did you finally finish dinner and decide to join us? I am not a fan of transmission flushes. It seems to be like a really easy way to dislodge crud or run a trans dry. We just do the drain and fill because it seems to be the safer way to do it. And if you look in the Toyota manuals, like the maintenance manual, it shows drain and fill. It doesn't ever say anything about flushing. And yeah, Steven, I knew what you meant. I was just messing with you. Yeah, I'd have to look it up to see about me welding it. And Dad just tuned in, so you can ask him about adopting you. Yeah, these are just red cap, the generic red cap shirts. These are supposed to be the new stain lifter, stain free ones, which are not. I actually don't like these. They've got like airy mesh on the side that's supposed to be awesome, but it's like tissue paper, and anytime you rub up against something, it shreds. I like my other red cap shirts, but I don't like this version. Oh, thanks, Brian. It's awesome. But yeah, I've been talking to. There's a guy that does like all the I Hate Mud merch, and he did like the fall crawl merchandise. I think I'm gonna have him start doing our shirts and stuff. I've just been lazy and haven't gotten the logos and that to him. But his stuff seems to be much nicer than the stuff I've been doing. And he could probably do work shirts as well, but I haven't asked. Yeah, I like the button-up work shirts. Crash won't wear them. But yeah. Oh, and if you guys don't mind, I'm going to jump off of here to get the dogs dinner so that they will leave me alone. They don't know that it's dinner time now and not an hour ago. So yeah, I'm going to jump off of here. Thanks to everybody that tuned in this evening. It's always good when we get a good mix of questions. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe below. I promise I'm going to get new videos out soon. We just haven't had anything good to film. So yeah, subscribe below. If you really dig the channel, check out our Patreon link down in the description. I always appreciate the support. And yeah, I'll ask about work shirts. And good luck to Brian for getting your truck back together. Oh, and beanies are a good idea too. I always dig beanies. So yeah, but thanks to everybody for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next week.